we'll go ahead and get started in the meantime. I have one small update on the pre-trial risk assessment topic that we did. We're in the process of securing a vendor to do an overhaul in our tools. Procurement is in the process of finalizing the contract. So once that's finalized, I can provide more details. So I just wanted to give you guys an update that we're moving ahead with that project. Great.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and do the approval of the December minutes. Has anyone not had an opportunity to look at the minutes? We have a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Make a motion.
We have a second motion.
Second.
There's a the meeting minutes are accepted as written. We'll move right along to our committee report. Amy, do you have a report for the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council?
Yes, good morning, everybody. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I apologize for not being there, but I've got 3 inches of snow and ice, and it's steady coming. So thanks for letting me jump in by Zoom. DVCC met last Friday, and we had 2 presenters. Darren Kelly did a wonderful job talking about the DVC program through the police department, and then told us the sad news that he will be retiring soon, so we will miss him. Nick D'Alessandro also presented the Winning Fathers program through Department of Social Services. This is an employment program for dads who owe child support. We work with dads who are involved in the criminal justice system. We provide lots of on-site services in the detention center, and then also work with those that are in the community. The AIP group is busy working to address some consistency across all the providers in terms of reporting out on the progress of those that they serve. The DV conference is on, so we are looking at the Hilton Gardens White Marsh as a possible location. It sounds like they have a couple of dates in September that may work. We're looking to see if we can get Friday, September 20th, but that's not solid yet, and we are working on themes. So we are moving forward very quickly for a September conference. The DV service providers continue to meet, and we'll meet again in April. DV court advocates are working together to make sure we can get as much coverage in the courts as possible. And that's about it.
Great, thanks, Amy. Does that have any questions for Amy? Okay, so I think Tanya told Kelly that the forensic officers did meet. Oh,
Yeah.
I recognize you guys. But do you have a report from?
Not really. I mean, nothing is going on, except for the same old status quo. I have some inquiries about the next meeting, so we will be meeting on March the 13th, but our last meeting was canceled because offices opened at 10 a.m. that day. So we're just keeping track of those that are on target to go to the state hospitals, and Aaron will probably present that number when we do our presentation. But other than that, I don't have anything else to report from the forensic justice.
Great, thank you. So we can go ahead and move on to our presentations. We're still on the mental health topic, and we'll start with corrections.
Right, we have our BC team here. Mr. Lee Smith, our liaison, Johnson, program manager, Mr. Brooks, and Mr. Start.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to be discussing the mental health illness at DCDC. We start with the intake process, followed by the referral process, chronic care management of the mental health illness, look into some of the challenges that we endeavor managing the mental health illness. Then we'll talk about the services, both male and female, and the re-entry process. We're going to get started with the intake. Upon admission to next slide. Upon admission at the BCDC, every individual is seen within 4 hours. That is, you undergo a screening process whereby you are evaluated for your both medical, mental health, and substance abuse disorders. Of all the people that are seen, at least we do have issues with 20% of the people who are unable to complete their intakes. This might be due to being non-compliant or having mental health illnesses that are not able to follow directions. But even though that happens, we are able to follow up with them afterwards to make sure that they are able to be seen. When they are seen during the screening process, based on the answers or how they respond to the questionnaire that are given by the nurses, they are referred to mental health services. If they're not referred to mental health services at that point, if they are committed, they can use the CICO process to self-refer themselves for mental health evaluations. During intake process, every individual that comes through gets a task that is started for 90-day evaluation for mental health needs, just in case they're not seen through the referral process or the CICO process. For the year 2023, next slide, we were able to see approximately 10,000 or complete 10,000 mental health appointments. Out of the 10,000 appointments that were completed during 2023, approximately 4,500, which is almost 45% of those individuals, had serious mental health illnesses, were on mental health medications, or were undergoing therapy to take care of their mental health illness. As you see, based on that data that you have presented over there. We did have 44 individuals who had self-injurious behaviors. We had 9 suicide attempts, but none were completed for 2023, which is good. There were 241 individuals that were seriously sick and needed advanced care, so they had to be transferred over to state hospital for further evaluation and care.
Can I ask a question? So these are not folks who leave not criminally responsible. These are folks who you all have determined when they volunteered that they have a problem. Is that correct?
Some have volunteered and some is based on how we assess them.
Okay.
Especially like we said, the 20% who refuse to complete the intake, they might come seriously sick, they're belligerent, they're not following directions. So once we see, or the public defender's office see that they need to be seen, the court psychiatrist evaluates them, then they are completed, they are certified to proceed to state hospitals.
Okay.
So it's a combination.
Mm-hmm.
How do we manage the mental health illness? We manage the mental health illness at the facility using 2 aspects for the chronic care management. There's the psychology management that is composed of the social workers and the psychologists, and there's the psychiatry part where they do manage them based on the cases. For the psychology management, they do see them and provide individual therapies on a daily basis. They evaluate them for emergency situations or crisis management, especially people who are on who require observation. They do also see them to help them with conflict resolutions if they have had encounters of complications or they are having problems. If we have some of the patients that are restricted housing, they are seen on a daily basis just to make sure that everything is okay. Now, as I said, there is a certain percentage, approximately 10% of our mental health illness patients that are seriously ill. For that case, the psychology team has initiated something called hygiene and nutrition rounding, because they are not able to take care of their own daily activities. We do go see them, provide them with hygiene, make sure that we can monitor and make sure that their vital signs are within normal parameters. For the psychiatry services, this is the team that helps order them medication. It's composed of MDs and nurse practitioners. They order medications for during their time at BCDC and also order medications for when they are leaving BCDC and going out. They do also help with crisis management. And one of the things that also they have been doing, like to echo to your question, if people are seriously sick and they have serious mental illness, it requires 2 providers, 2 psychiatrists, to both certify them to go to a state hospital. So our psychiatry team is able to complete that. So those are some of the things that we are able to manage their chronic care management when they are at the facilities. Mrs. Johnson later on will address some of the services that we offer for our females. Ms. Smith will address some of the services that we offer for our males. And before that, let me talk about some of the health challenges. We did say that we do offer this chronic care management. However, that portion that is seriously sick, maybe those are some of the homeless people that we keep seeing them keep coming back because maybe we do not have effective social services for them. They are outside our place, or because some of the people that are sick in the community are not afforded forensic beds in some of the hospitals that we have, they end up at BCPC. Even though they are not ordered to go to MDH, even though that we have 12 providers who have certified them with sick state hospital admission for further evaluations, we do have them having long wait periods, and that's why Mr. Brooks works with the MDH to try and have them admitted. On average, we do have like 20 people waiting every day to be estimated to the state hospitals. And all of these people have an average of like 25 days wait time, which causes a challenge with the management of their care as they compensate at BCPC for both the clinical and the rest of the team.
Dr. Thuku, can I ask a question real quick?
And I'm gonna ask.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I apologize.
Okay. Yes.
So are you talking about two different pathways into the hospitals? One through the court system, through the incompetency commitments, but then there's another pathway where you will refer somebody to psychiatrists, have to certify them, and then they can go to a hospital. Is that correct? Okay,
Yes,
so there's
I'm
two different
addressing-
ways.
I'm addressing both ways.
Okay,
However, one of the things that MDH is doing, they're giving priority only to the court orders.
so the court-ordered ones get priority. So the other subset of people that you're referring, that you and your professionals and people in the jail that are seeing, they're not even on Ms. Smith's list. This list is just court-ordered, right?
That's what they give. They're still on that list, but they are not a priority. Priority is for the ones that are court ordered and have been seen by the court psychiatrist.
Interesting. Thank you. I didn't know about that second one.
And we had a question from Amy. She wanted to clarify, did you say a 30-day wait time for beds?
Yeah, on average, it's 25 days. That's the average. Some of them are seen with taken within 18 days, and some of them go up to 60 days. So the average is 25 days.
Can I ask an
Sure.
additional question?
Mhm.
That's everybody, average is 25 days,
For the year 2020.
2020. There's no shorter average for those that are court ordered to have the quote priority. Everybody is about 25.
5 days. And Eric. is the-
We have I bracket it in. So, right now.
October 6th.
And they are compensating within the some of the medications as they become self-injures, and that's when we have our two psychiatrists coming in to say, now we're gonna act.
So even though the priority is for the court order, practically speaking, there's not much difference between your two populations with regards to the pathway to state hospitals.
And the state hospitals do have their own matters where sometimes they might be telling us some of their units are shut down before or they have other priorities, because we are not the only jail or facility that is trying to get. So it's case by case. So we just have to keep working.
Thank you.
Definitely a statewide issue.
Now, in addition to the seriously mentally ill patients that we have to deal with, we also have this other small portion that has come to play, which is managing the juveniles as adults at BCPC. Some of the juveniles that we see a lot at BCPC are there due to some sort of mental health illnesses, and they have not been taking their medication, so they don't have they're not, compliant with their medications, end up with behavior issues, and end up at BCPC. And we have to manage them, so we work. It becomes complicated working with the parents juveniles who has also been treated as adults, making sure that we can afford them care before they can be transferred to juveniles. So that's another challenge. All right. With that being said, these are some of the challenges that we endeavor at DCDC. Our goal is to reduce, to provide good mental health services, good mental health care, so that we can reduce recidivism for our incarcerated. Ms. Johnson.
Good morning. I'm going to cover two of the programs that are offered at the detention center. One is Striving to Achieve Recovery Together, which is short for START. The program is approximately 6 weeks, which covers the treatment and education service for the female incarcerated individuals at DC. There are approximately 20 staff who work both inside and outside of the detention center, as well as volunteers to educate the women. Some of the services that they offer are educational, health relations, one-on-one counseling, substance abuse, peer lead activity, trauma, anger management, yoga, group support. Case management service is provided within the facility, and case management is provided upon the 6 months after release from the detention center. The female individuals are housed together in one unit to provide therapeutic, peer network, and behavior change. Implementation of these skills, main goal is to decrease recidivism and the rate upon release. The other one is TAMAR, which stands for the Trauma, Addiction, Mental Health, and Recovery. This is a component of the START program. This service is provided to female incarcerated individuals who has experienced violence, physical, sexual, or emotional trauma. A lot of the females have been diagnosed with PTSD. The program is offered twice a week in group format, and individual counseling is provided once a week. Group and individual treatment focus on enabling the individual to develop coping skills that promote emotional safety and to improve life function. That being said, I will pass it on to Ms. Tanya Smith.
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna stand up so I can take my mask down. I wasn't at the last meeting because I was sick. So that's why I'm still wearing my mask. So once a person has been deemed as having a serious mental health issue and they come to 3SAN, the mental health unit, we have a therapeutic community where we address the holistic person. We cover trauma, mental health, substance use, self-esteem, effective communication, healthy relationships, the gamut. Because we know it's not just about mental health. They have other things that they have to address as well. Some of these individuals come from horrible backgrounds. I can tell you some stories. So it's a 12-month curriculum that we go by. Every month has a theme. For example, this month is effective communication. So in addition to group activities, we have group Monday through Thursday that are mandatory, and Friday is an optional group. It's a peer-led group where the inmates get to lead group themselves. So with that theme, we make sure that we're addressing effective communication the whole month with presentations, with group exercises, with role playing, etc. One of the new things that we have resorted back to, we used to do it over the years, but we kind of got away with it when COVID hit. But now we're going back to having outside presenters come in. So like last week, I had Mr. Dills come in and he did a presentation about the services offered by the Public Defender's Office. This week, I have HCAM coming, Healthcare Access Maryland. They'll present on the case management services that they offer. So on my team, I have a licensed clinical social worker and 2 certified peer recovery specialists. Once we meet those guys, they go through the program, we operate it in a safe space where their needs are being met. I don't tolerate foolishness on the unit, bullying, none of that. When that's brought to our attention, we make those moves that are necessary because everybody over there has mental health. Everybody doesn't have substance use, but everybody has mental health. So I have to keep it a safe space. So if a person is interested in peer support, I will assign one of my peer specialists to work with them. They start building that rapport with them, start advocating on their behalf. They work with them in the facility and up to 12 months after they get released. In addition to that, we talk about life skills. I told you that every month has a theme. In December, life skills was our theme. So during that month, we found out over the years that some people have never had a job. They've never applied for a job. So we said, oh, okay, we're going to address that. So we start teaching them how to present themselves at an interview, how to look at a resume and prepare a resume. And then we ended with mock interviews. So we had these makeup jobs for Amazon. So they have to sit in front of a panel and sell themselves to the 3 individuals on the panel while we should select them. And the guys really get into it. So we do a whole lot to cover the holistic person because we know that mental health is a challenge in itself. A lot of you in here I've dealt with, you called me for various reasons. So we try to make sure that we're constantly reinventing ourselves with different things. Like I told you, we reinvent or resume the outside speakers. And we just try to make sure that we're addressing all of their needs, not just the mental health, but everything. So I'll entertain questions if you have any.
That concludes our presentation. Management of mental health illness.
Anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm just gonna make a state, going back to the slide, challenges. Every time I hear that I've given similar presentations, it amazes me that we're not just shocked and appalled. When we look at what we're dealing with across our entire system, there's no out. There should be outrage that it takes a month to get into a state psychiatric hospital. And I think, we're all spinning wheels across our system, our various systems, juveniles, adults, because the resources aren't there. Policy decisions have been made over decades that have resulted in this being acceptable status quo. I'm just going to say that.
I love that. That is beautiful. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
We're down at the General Assembly, right? You're hearing the push back and forth desires to some of our statutes. And many people in judiciary's position on some of those. So do not assume that there is no help.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't have time for PowerPoint. State's Attorney's Office obviously handles all criminal cases in Baltimore County. In our district court, which handles predominantly misdemeanors, the total cases typically handled in our district court approximately 30,000. So just think about Towson, Catonsville, and Essex. You walk into any one of those courthouses on criminal day, it is very busy, right, Judge Wilson? Very busy. The dockets have been running pretty heavy. Spent a lot of time catching up, and I think we're in pretty good shape. So 30,000 in district court, and those are predominantly misdemeanors. Juvenile, we typically handle around 4,000 filings. And please remember, there are a lot of juveniles who get into the system that don't even make it to juvenile court because they're informally dealt with by Juvenile Services Administration. Police department also has a joint program that diverts individuals also. So the 4,000 that we're talking about of juvenile filings every year are pretty serious cases. And the interesting thing about juvenile is that it's not divided by misdemeanor and felony, it's completely divided by the age and the crime. So you theoretically could have a carjacking in juvenile, just like you could have a simple assault or a theft. Although there are places where people of a certain age can be charged as an adult, that is being debated in Annapolis right now. And it's not debated, we're going through that right now. Then we go to circuit court. Our total filings in circuit court is 8,000. Circuit court is typically where felonies are heard, but we don't have 8,000 felonies, thank goodness. Usually we have somewhere around a little below 3,000. So in 2020, the number of felonies in our circuit court, 2,399. 2021, 2,433. 2026, 2,611. So they've been running pretty consistently below 3,000 in the early teens, 2012, 2013, 2014. We were right hovering around 3,000 felonies a year. But we've been pretty consistent in the low to mid 2000s over the last several years. And of course, felonies, as all of you know, are the big ones: murder, rape, robbery, carjacking. So that's a pretty good amount of cases. Homicides are another area which people always want to hear numbers. So for the first 8 or 10 years, 9 years of the decade, 2010 to 2017, we were running in the 20s and 30s homicides per year. And actually, in 2019, we had 2013, we had 19 homicides, which is pretty much unheard of. Then in 2018, 27, 2019, 49. And that one scared me until we got to 2021. But 2020, we dropped back down to 33. 2021, 54. That was the most homicides we've ever had in Baltimore County by far. Now, that having been said, my friends, unfortunately, in Baltimore City, were well over 300. And the other thing that we have to remember is how much our population has changed. We've gone from around 810,000 citizens in 2010 to our population now, which is 854,000 plus. So we've gained a tremendous population over the last 10 years, which the more population you have, the more likely it is you're going to have homicides. In 2021, I actually looked at every one of those 54 homicides, trying to see if I could find a pattern of why that came about. And I really could not find a pattern. A lot of times people will say, oh, they must all be from the city. Well, they're not. Of the 54, 14 of them had city addresses, which means the other 40 were homegrown Baltimore County folks. Now, the good news is 2022, we dropped back down to 36, and 2023, again, I don't know what the rhyme or reason is, we dropped down to 29. So I'm hoping we stay in those lower numbers as we continue on. And I hope we don't have one of those outliers again like 2021. So to handle all that, I have 65 lawyers. If you do a little bit of math, and I probably should have done a PowerPoint, I have a great slide. I have a great slide. My prosecutors handle more cases per prosecutor than any jurisdiction in the state by far. We handle 280 cases per prosecutor per year, which far exceeds anyone else in the county. The reason these numbers are so grilled in my head is because yesterday we had a budget hearing where I was begging for more prosecutors. And, the next closest jurisdiction is 251 per prosecutor, and that's Anne Arundel County. Everybody else is in the hundreds. So my prosecutors work very hard. 65 full-time prosecutors, another 70, 80 support staff. Obviously, we handle every criminal case in Baltimore County. If you put together district court, juvenile, and felonies and circuit court, it's about 45,000 cases. So the math works out pretty well. And one thing I forgot to explain, those 3,000 felonies, well, how do we have another 5,000 cases in circuit court? Well, as many of you know, you can pray a jury trial when you're in the district court. They like to get away from those judges. And that automatically moves your case over from district court to circuit court. Very often, it's a method of just trying to postpone the case and delay the inevitable. So that staff is pretty good, works really hard. In our district court, our 14 lawyers handle everything. Any case that walks in their room, they're going to handle that. In our circuit court, we actually are divided into many specialized units. So we have people who specialize in narcotics, white collar crime, sex offenses, both adult and child cases. I have 5 prosecutors. Johnny O was good enough to give us one extra one last year. We have 5 prosecutors who do nothing but handle adult sex abuse cases and child abuse cases, both physical and sexual. We have a domestic violence unit or a family violence unit. Again, 4 attorneys. All they do are domestic violence. We have a prosecutor who handles identity theft, one that handles gangs, one that has gone to arson school so that they can handle arsons in case we have some of those. One of the unfortunately busy prosecutors is the one who handles auto manslaughter. And again, they've been devoted to that one area of law for a very long time. So the specialized units, in fact, just yesterday, so many people in the specialized units want to go for training that I approved 4 or 5 trainings for them to go to over the next year. One of the other special units that we have is our victim witness unit. These are 10 staff members who do nothing but deal with the victims and witnesses of crime. They do everything from stamping parking tickets at the Towson courthouse because people had to park and pay for their parking in the garage, all the way up to sitting in court with a homicide victim's family during a 3-week-long trial for the person that killed their loved one. And they do everything in between. They're a very good unit. They've had a lot of people who have been there for a very long time. They're very dedicated, and they do a great job, and they're really important to my office. Couple other things. Staffing has been a problem, just like my friend Jim. In the last 18 months, 14 assistant state's attorneys have left my office. Most of them with medium to experienced prosecutors. 14 of the 18, 14 in 18 months. 2 of them retired, which, okay, I get that. But 12 walked into my office, most of them crying, saying that they have to leave because they're going to the Attorney General's office because they'll make $25,000 more and they need a raise. And unfortunately, that's just a reality that we are facing, and it's been pretty tough. Currently, I have 10 openings. That means 10 other prosecutors are doing even more work than some of the numbers I told you. Fortunately, I have 1 hire that starts in March and 3 that are starting this summer. So that's all pretty rough, but we do handle a lot of that. One of the other numbers that I think is pretty shocking, and I can explain why, is we always take a really good look at the number of guns seized, particularly during car stops. So these numbers are guns seized during car stops: 2018, 12, 2019, 16, 2020, 30, 2021, 28, 2023, 8. So what happened? It wasn't their fault. My friends, I don't want to say friends, my not friends in Annapolis passed a law that mandated that the odor of marijuana coming from a car would not justify a search of the vehicle. And that is the sole reason that we went from 28 guns one year to 8 the next. There is a bill in to change that. I don't know that they have the power for that one this year. Friday, I was down there testifying with 4 other elected state's attorneys, trying to strengthen our juvenile justice system. We were testifying and answering questions for about 2.5 hours on Friday about just juvenile justice. That's our concentration this year, to try and push back on some of the changes they made 2 years ago that I think have caused a lot of the juvenile crimes to get out of control. So that's basically our presentation. You know, I have really good people who work with me. I still have people who want to come, but it's that medium group who have been there 5, 6 years, who suddenly are in their 30s and they're wanting to have children, and they know they need to have a job that pays more money. And you know, we're going to continue to try and work on it. So if anybody has any questions.
You staff, the specialty courts like the mental health docket, years that are specific dedicated to that.
Yes. So in my district court, I have 2 supervisors, a mid-level supervisor and then a division chief, which are the highest people in my office. Those 2 lawyers almost always do the mental health docket because they're trained in that area, and they come over, you know, when they have to do that every couple of weeks. So they do have specialized training. You don't just send a prosecutor over who's only been practicing law for 6 months. We send, you know, people who've been around for a long. Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, thanks all. I'm a stander too, so I will stand. Sorry, I have boots on. I look ridiculous. In Pennsylvania, we had 3 inches of snow when I left, so I was surprised and shocked that we're still having this meeting. But anyway, I'll explain it to you in that way.
We're trying to have it without.
Scott's always trying to keep me out of the room. So I'm going to turn my attention back to the mental health piece of this in terms of what we're talking about. It's what the jail says. We have, it's so weird for the public defender's office to be allied with the jail, but in so many ways, I told Director Pesterfield this, we're kind of allied. We're kind of with them, especially on this issue of mental health. I was a little shocked by the 25 days that was alluded to in this case. When you look at the list that we have, the average times are closer to 60 to 75 days. If you just take one and pass it around. These are basically lists from, this is the famous list you hear all about that Ms. Smith puts together every single week, sends it to me, sends it to a couple other people in the judiciary, sends it around, which essentially shows people that are waiting to go to a mental health bed. And what you basically see here is, I white out the names on the left side, so you won't see them on that left side. You'll see the case number, you'll see the IST, you'll see when they got admitted. Or not admitted, when they got their order signed for competency.
You know what? I want to add something to your comment.
Sure.
So the 25 days wait time average exclude from the time that they were given. So if we say that they need to go to the state hospital within the next 10 days, we don't count that time. Now after the 10th day, then you start adding.
Oh, so you don't count the first 10.
Yeah, so depending on whether it's 10 days, 14 days. So if we had to add those days, you could see the 30s, the 40s and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the list that you have there, you're going to see like people's orders. There is a gentleman on there. October 3rd, his order for IST was signed. He is still sitting at the detention center waiting for a bed. And Ms. Smith did her list. I think we got it yesterday. He's still on that list. I know he has not been moved. So when we see that, it immediately brings alarms to us as to why are these wait times? And we've talked to the Department of Health. I've had multiple meetings with them. I hear them talk about they're changing their systems, they're adding bed space, they're creating put-throughs. I think this is the term that they use. Once somebody completes their bed, to move on to the next phase. So we hear about these things, but I've been hearing about it for about 3 years now. I still have not seen a relief in that bed space. And we talk about it literally all the time. Anyone that knows me knows this is kind of my thing, this mental health thing with people in the jail. The other thing that is kind of interesting about this list, and when you talk about it, if you look on the right, now this is stuff I added all the way on the right, so it doesn't look as pretty as Ms. Smith's, but I did it quickly the other day, just to talk about what the charges are. What you're seeing there, obviously, you got somebody with a murder, you got somebody with serious sex offense, you got serious charges like that. I understand that people charged with that are in a situation where they might have to wait longer. There might be more issues. It's the trespasses, the malicious destructions of property, the rogue and vagabond. It's those charges on the right, which kind of shock me. The maximum penalty for a trespass is 90 days. The maximum penalty for a malicious destruction of property is 60 days. The maximum penalty for rogue and vagabond is 3 years. So what is happening is a person gets found not competent to stand trial. They go onto Ms. Smith's list. That they then wait. And if the average, I think the average is closer to 60, and I understand what you're saying, but just based on what I'm looking at, it's about 60, and I'm even saying closer to 90, somewhere in that 60 to 90-day window. A person serves their entire sentence. They then come to court, and the judge can't do anything but release a person in that instance, because now they've served their entire sentence. So now, is their charge viable? That's the question Judge Davis asks all the time on these things. Is the charge viable? Ask that to the state, ask that to the defense. Is the charge still viable? If it's not viable, what do we have then? We have a person that has served their maximum sentence, or served close to their maximum sentence, still waiting for a bed that never happens. So what happens to this person? They're let out into the community with very little services. Now, I know Ms. Smith tries to hook them up with a peer, tries to hook them up with stuff, but there's nothing to kind of corral them in, to basically keep them on the straight and narrow. There is, I'm going to use an example, because I think this example really kind of illustrates. Police arrest a client. It's a female. She's older. I think she was 65 or 70 years old, at a 7-Eleven for trespassing. Not arrest her. I think they cite her and tell her, you got to stay away. What does she do? She comes back. She suffers from mental health issues. She suffers from various things. She goes into the 7-Eleven. She takes a coffee. She's not supposed to be there. The store owner, understandably, doesn't want her in the business and says, please leave. She doesn't. She takes a coffee, puts it on the counter, gives them $2. It's $2.60. She gets charged with theft under $100 and trespass. She then sits in the jail and waits for that bed to open. The bed never opens. She's eventually put in a situation where she's kind of released. And we get cases like this. I hear from the jail a lot in terms of, can you do anything for this person? Whether it's a bail review, whether it's, can you do something on a motion, or whatever we can do to try to move people to where they need to be. Unfortunately, it's not always successful. Can't always get what we're looking for. And we do have people, especially on these lower level charges. On this sheet that I showed you, there's 7 people there with lower level charges. I'm not saying a person times out, serves their entire sentence, but these are lower level charges that if we can address on there, those 7 people, if we can address them earlier and get them moved out of the detention center into a proper placement, into some type of setting that works, what that does, if that happens across the state, and we have that across the state, you're going to have beds start to open up that we wouldn't have to use on people that suffer from this. So we need more services in the community. We need more things that basically kind of encompass all of that. I've also, and this is a, if I say this word, I'm going to just, everyone look at Scott's face right now. Diversion. He hates the word, he and I've talked about it, but it's diversion, and it's the police officers, and it's getting everybody on board with trying to divert people from the court system, because the court system, I hate to say it, we can't babysit everything. We just can't. It's to basically take people, these 7 people, before they get arrested, before they go in, can we create something? Can we create a pathway that puts them into something, a different path? And I know that the police get a really bad rap. They really do, for what they try to do. I understand why they go into that 7-Eleven and arrest this person. But is there a way we can call mobile crisis? And I don't think we're at that stage right now with mobile crisis to basically respond to all of these types of calls. But that is the type of thing, if we have more access to that and we get that mobile crisis team there earlier, I think what we can do is we can basically take that subset of people into more services, into a different pathway, as opposed to using the court system to do that. I think what that does, no matter what we say, people don't think of court as a good place to be. So people become very hostile and resistant to that. They become resistant to the police. Is there a way that we can somehow change that perception, change that lens through which they're looking? And that's why I think if we create other pathways, we create other ways, we create diversions, we create mobile crisis, I think it could be something that really could address some of the mental health things that all of us are struggling with. I share the outrage. I really do. It is one of those things that every time I talk about the subject, it gets me all amped up, because it's something I look at these clients and I just go, wow. It's that phrase, but for the grace of God go I. That's how I feel. Like, I feel like that could be my son, that could be my daughter, that could be somebody I know in my life that is suffering from that. And it hits me. It's when I start thinking about that. So I'm sorry, it was less data driven, more feeling, but that's kind of what I think I wanted to present in regards to the public defender. Thanks.
I have two comments on.
Sure.
First, that's one of the things that we talk about in our groups, is resources. We talk about, tell your family about mobile crisis, because every county has one. So if your family sees you going through a crisis, let them know that they need to call and ask specifically for the mobile crisis team instead of just calling the police. Secondly, Eric Brooks and I work on this list together, so I don't want to take all the credit for this. Eric does a lot of this, and then I send it to them after I add my 2 cents, like when they get released and stuff.
Thank you, Eric Brooks. I didn't know you were doing it behind the scenes.
Quick question.
Absolutely.
The date that a finding of to stand trial is made.
Yes.
Okay. And second is a comment. I don't want to say too much, but Judge Davis has been looking at the concept of diversity. I know she is reaching out to a lot of different idea of trying to create a process of diversity. I don't know quite where she is on all of that, because there's a lot of different pieces that she's trying to pull together. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's awesome. I will absolutely talk to Judge Davis.
That is something that's happening. She's been meeting with some folks and talking to the leadership at the judiciary, seeing about money, resources, and things like that. So
thank you, Judge.
Just throwing that out.
So, I mean, the big problem is the end game. You know, if Jimmy called me up and said, can we send this person here? I looked and saw a trespass, they've been in jail for 60 days. I'd say, sure. The problem is that here doesn't exist. And we all agree with that. And, you know, I would say yes in a second to Jim, and we'd go, well, somebody would go see Judge Wilson and make sure that that got done. But we have to continue to push for the here. Where are they going to go? And, you know, we're not even talking about Clifton T. Perkins, which is where the, you know, murderers go. You know, we're talking about a lesser place, and that's what the problem is. So if my choices are, unfortunately, the 7-Eleven every day and calling these folks, and, you know, they sit in the jail while they wait for their incompetency to come up and hope a bed opens up, I don't know where the choices are. That's the problem. And we've had this conversation.
We absolutely have, yes.
So it's a dilemma, and it's got to be fixed bigger than us, unless Johnny's willing to open up spring.
the note of diversion, I just wanted to support you fully. We have had in the opioid response strategy for 5 years now to implement the lead for law enforcement assisted diversion, mainly focused on substance use, but also since we know 80% are co-occurring, it would be a more encompassing program. Johnny O is working on the crisis stabilization center, which is not the answer, but it's a step in the process so that if individuals out in the community are picked up, they can be taken somewhere other than the detention center, because we know that process. We also have kind of pressure from the hospital system to be addressing this from the substance use side, because it's not just where law enforcement is involved, but it also would then allow for diversion from EDs, which we know are overcrowded by these calls. So there are plans in the works, and I hope, in this group that we can, provide a voice to say, how do we move this forward and how do we get crisis stabilization? There's a consultant under contract right now who's going to look at Baltimore County, look at all of our demographics, look at our flow throughs from both the mental health and the substance use perspective, and come up with a plan to say, we can't just plop a crisis stabilization center in Towson and hope that it works. We're probably going to have 2 facilities, one on the east side, one on the west side. Where do we put those? How do we configure them? A team of us went out to Frederick County, where they have a new center that they opened this summer. And they are ramping their program up. So there's a lot to look forward to, and I would just hope that we as a group could support that, to look at all the different ways that individuals flow through our systems, that we can't serve them the best that we want to, that crisis stabilization and then expanding the array of services after crisis stabilization is a direction that we can go to some of this. And Mark, I just want to say, with you, I'm outraged. That's why I'm championing these solutions.
I'll continue my role as agitator. I think as I'm listening to this discussion, one of the things that concerns me is this idea, this is what we're talking about today, right? Criminal justice system. How courts, detention centers serve this population is very much tied to time, right? 60 days for this, 2 years for that. Does it wait to get into this, right? But in reality, mental health treatment doesn't work, right? Referring to wherever the here is, Scott, people aren't going to be fixed in 60 days, right? That's the reality of mental health treatment. Mental health treatment requires both parties. Treatment provider have significant expertise, hopefully using evidence-based practices, but the participant has to be a full participant to make the progress needed so that they don't go back to the 7-Eleven, right? And so one of the things I'm sitting here thinking is, I bet if you gave us identifying information for these 26 or so people on this list, that every single one of them we could find in our databases, or not everyone. I bet the preponderance of them we would find in our databases, touching our systems all over the place, repeatedly for years. And so I just, again, being the agitator, how do we go way upstream and try to provide services to people that meet their needs before they even get to the point that they're going back to the 7-Eleven to buy a cup of coffee because their mental health is significant. Period. I don't know the answer. These are really tough questions that we deal with every day, juveniles and adults. And you're right, the co-occurring issues, right? But because substances are readily available, it's easier to get substances to treat my mental health disorder legally than it is to get into mental health, right? And so people are just finding ways to treat themselves. That leads to the spiral. So we've got to figure out what services get in place earlier to meet folks' needs. And then when they do reach the point of court, right, that's where I don't deny the reality of some people aren't going to get there on their own. So the court system, or justice system, can sort of force them to accept the treatment, and there's value in that too.
Wow, this is a depressing morning.
Next time I tackle mental health.
I have to go to Annapolis, which means my afternoon will be even worse.
But the reality is, we are talking about, are bound by times associated with crime, and that's why we're talking through lens in this. And sure, I think every single person in this room is responsible for that. Parties in this room are doing what they can. Then who is responsible for the rest? That's a big, wide open question. You know, part of the issue is we've never reached parity. Health, right? What our insurance covers for health. You can call your doctor, you can get an appointment, you got a sty right in your eye. But to try to get an appointment to talk to a therapist through your insurance, you might wait 60 days and you get an assessment, and then you might not get any more appointments, you might not get a referral because the system, insurance, doesn't treat mental health care. That's a that's a federal government. Obamacare tried to address some of that. So there's significant issues with that. It's a little bit my bias. We all believe in evidence-based. Let's implement things that are proven to work. Really expensive. So we talk about evidence-based practices, but we don't really want to pay. That becomes a big issue. Of course, buy a private healthcare system, they don't want to pay for it either. So the health department does a lot of funds or seeds, not just health, but they do health, management board, private fund those. S funds, a lot of those juveniles. We have to continue down that path, but it boils down to resources. How do you find evidence-based practices that work, but work in the most efficient? So I mean, those are much bigger challenges. Obviously, school, there's starting earlier. Services, some investment. At some point, blueprint, separate funding, consolidated consortium on, but it's money coming to serve school-age children.
Very much you push.
Interested in marketing program wants to become an overdose response program. Like the county, naloxone, Maryland has seen a decrease in overdoses. And a lot of it anecdotally is starting with some research is naloxone saturation. So if you have any way to get it out, please let me know. If you
I think the attention to around, but did anyone have any other general updates?
I do have just an update unrelated to I just wanted to let everybody know about last Thursday, February at the Towson District Court at about 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 subjects in black vehicles circled the courthouse, and one of them pulled a gun out of the passenger side window and shot towards in the direction of the Towson Courthouse building in the area where the commissioners are. As many of you know,
We have commissioners in our buildings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No matter rain, shine, closer, holiday, there's always a commissioner on duty. Fortunately, nobody was injured. I know that the police are diligently working to gather and investigate to determine who may have done that. But I just wanted to share with you that that's what happened. We had a Zoom meeting right away the same day. Justice Bader, Judge Morrissey, Judge Wilson, Judge Brett Wilson from Washington County. He is the chair of the Security Task Force. He was the administrative judge in Washington County at the time that Judge Wilkinson was tragically shot dead in his driveway. They were all on the call and provided services and assistance to our staff to reassure them. And I know that that is an ongoing investigation, but we've been just very pleased with how everybody has responded to help us. Sadly, this is the third such incident we've had of this kind of a serious, dangerous nature in Baltimore County at each of our 4 locations at this point. So I'm not sure, maybe it's one of those statistical analysis. At some point, we can try to figure out what is happening in the world that is leading to this. I just think maybe part of it is people see courts as a symbol of authority of the government, and there's a lot, as you all know, in the society right now regarding government action and the symbols thereof. So I suspect we're just one of the latest targets, sadly to say.
The only thing I could add to that is that we do have some leads that we.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It also shows the importance too of having good surveillance systems in our government. So around 1,000, it helps us with a similar start.
So that was our mental health topic. Yeah, I wanted to show anything else.
And I have comment what is. As an as with my experience, one of the things that I know, mental health, historically has been traumatized. We didn't look at it as a chronic care illness until recently. That we're looking at mental health as a chronic care illness, and then actually now we're looking at substance abuse as a chronic care illness. If you have diabetes and hypertension, we're gonna treat you from whenever you recognize that diagnosis and continue to treat the end type. For mental health, it's the same thing. We take care of our young people when they're in school using the caseworkers, using the case management services. When we see them, they leave school, we can follow them. Now, ideally, most mental health illnesses are diagnosed or they become more conspicuous from the age of 18 to 25. That's when we see some of the serious mental health illnesses coming to people, and especially if they expose themselves to substance abuse or any other stuff. Now, do we have caseworkers from the Department of Health following people who have been triggered with some mental health illnesses? I don't think we follow adults. I don't think we follow people when they are recognized to have mental health illnesses. So I think one of the ways that we can curtail or cut the whole mental health illnesses, which is a chronic care issue that is not treated within 36 days or 2 years, is coming with a case management system, maybe in use of social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, a team under the Department of Health to follow those people that have been recognized through their providers, annual checkups that they have mental health illnesses, and follow them without having police, jail system, or the lawyers involved, that they're followed by healthcare workers. We just check on them 30 days, 60 days annually and help them to make sure that they are following their medications, they are seeking their help that whenever they need, if they have trauma, if they have some PTSD, schizophrenia, we address those things from a health point of view and long term, not short term. That will alleviate some of the issues that we see on the other side.
So our next meeting is April 9th, and for that meeting, and I think the June meeting, the topic will be substance abuse. So for the presentation, we would ask first present in April a joint presentation for Louise and HHS, Amy. And then we will also ask correction for that. And then we'll figure out the rest of the schedule at the next meeting. But I think unless anyone else has anything to add.
For corrections to present, are you, when you say substance abuse, are you, what we offer in a jail or?
For the.
Okay, just know, yeah, just know that, okay, just know that, we're not trying to sensationalize our challenges, but these are realities that we face every day, in our profession. We have specialized units, we have gone, as far as having specialized officers to work in these units. And imagine asking someone to take a shower. Who don't want to take a shower? They're not used to taking shower when they're outside. And they're in now, and trying to get them to take shower. We actually have, what, Thursday?
That's this, and now we added Monday.
Yeah. So on Monday and Thursdays, our staff, along with mental health, go and coach people about taking shower. Some of them have lice. They don't even want to comb their hair. So we have to talk to them. So when we give them these challenges, we are not only trying to sensationalize it, we are really telling you what is happening in our facilities.
I think, I mean, at least for myself, I appreciate the frankness of these conversations and our ability to have, you know, we all feel passionately about it. We all have a different point on some of these topics. So I appreciate the ability for us to come together and have real and frank conversations. And I don't think anyone's taking it as sensationalizing. I think that's important information to understand what challenges your staff has and what, you know, how that impacts those that are incarcerated as well. So thank you, everybody here, for even have this conversation to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.